So let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell if it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Jackson with Jackson. This one is number 37. Can Charles Jackson get anything right? And of course, we all know that the answer is pretty much no. But I am here, as usual, well, as always, for Jackson with Jackson, because otherwise I would do a different show, with Jackson Wheat. Jackson, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
It's going. I'm doing some scripting. I'm gonna probably take a lot of this week easy because it's a holiday week. I've got turkey ready to brine. I'm gonna brine it pretty much throughout all of tomorrow, and gonna cook it. I just realized I forgot something at the store, so I'm gonna have to go to the store tomorrow.
No.
Okay, well, whatever. That's okay. I remember the other thing that I usually forget when I go to the store. So yeah, it was a semi-successful trip to the store today, but that's okay.
Okay.
But hey, we're not here to talk about holidays. We're here to talk about Charles Jackson, a creationist and, of course, Mensa member. Can't forget that he's in Mensa. Of course, I also remember that Orphan Red, the Flat Earth adult film star, also got into Mensa. So, it's the Flat Earther part that's significant there. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of adult film stars who are very, very intelligent. It's just most of them aren't Flat Earthers, I'm guessing. Although I did I think it was on Twitter, see footage of an adult star shooting his Cybertruck with a pistol, expecting it to stop the bullets, and then getting very upset when it didn't. So maybe some of them are also not very smart.
Oh, well, that's fair. I also watch adult film stars, but for different reasons. So.
Oh. Well, hey, go for it. You do you. All right.
I'd be doing.
So, let's see. We're here to talk about Charles Jackson, and that involves a drinking game. We got a drinking game for this. Wait, we can barely hear Jackson. Uh-oh. Jackson, you're all quiet.
You can't hear me. Am I?
Let's keep talking.
I'm told, yes, that you cannot hear me. Huh. Okay.
Well, I've turned you up considerably.
Can everyone hear me now? Do I sound okay?
If anything, you might be a little too loud.
Hello?
Hello?
Survey says?
Alright. We'll see how it is.
Okay.
So, Dr. Charles Jackson is, of course, the one we call Bad Jackson. And let's see. He is a young Earth creationist. He's not really associated with any of the main big three. There is another smaller group that has like 2 or 3 speakers that he's technically affiliated with. Although I don't know really to what extent he's just exclusively with them. It seems like his main day job is like teaching at a Christian college. So there you go. And we've been watching this whole thing about him trying to tell us how birds aren't dinosaurs. And of course, the one thing that he would have to do to start this out, the one most important thing that is the absolute basis for any time you're going to say X isn't Y, is telling us what the hell Y is. And you know what Charles Jackson hasn't done at any point in this entire talk, now that we're over an hour in? Is tell us what a dinosaur is in a way that we can unambiguously decide if any animal in question is a dinosaur or not. Just hasn't done that. Now, why do you think that is there, good Jackson?
Could it be that he doesn't actually know what a dinosaur is?
Oh, I think there's a more important reason. I mean, I do think it's quite possible that he does not know what a dinosaur is, but I think there's a much more important reason.
He doesn't want you to know what a dinosaur is, because then you realize that birds are dinosaurs?
Exactly. There is no way to effectively tell someone what a dinosaur is that doesn't make it pretty obvious, if you study the anatomy of birds, that birds are also dinosaurs. Darren Simmons for $5 with their first super chat. Thank you very much. Says, long-time viewer and first-time commenter, just wanted to say thanks for so much entertainment and for so long. And of course, AIG, et un suck de bite, and I will take a drink for it going into the French there. Thank you very much. I am drinking, of course, a whiskey mule today. It is gingery and whiskey, and also ice cold because I made sure it was. So, Charles Jackson most recently was complaining about a picture in National Geographic that was arranged according to relatedness to birds and not arranged chronologically. We know that's what it was because it was literally on the page in National Geographic where the illustration appeared, what it was, right? They told you that this was not a chronological ordering, it was a taxonomic ordering. And then he's like, well, that's just a lie because they're not in chronological order. And it's like, I don't know how much less of a lie it can be when someone just comes out and tells you what they're doing, right? Like, if I came out and I arranged, I don't know, all the dog breeds in a picture by, like, height, and you were like, well, that's not chronological. And I'm like, okay, but it was never supposed to be, and I said it was ordered by height in the caption for the image. Is it really fair to call me a liar? I don't think so. I don't... yeah, that doesn't seem reasonable to me. Hey.
To quote you a few minutes ago, if it requires more than the briefest glance, then it counts as lying, basically.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I forgot that is the criterion that Charles Jackson seems to go with. All right, so that's a little bit of context. We'll also run quickly through the drinking rules, because we got some drinking rules. I just realized I'm also a little slow on updating for that super chat, so thank you very much. We're at 1%. If we get to 100%, Vince gets free pizza, which is good, because it's been a while since he got free pizza, and I think he's starting to waste away. So, we will take a drink anytime Charles Jackson says something so stupid we just kind of have to take a drink to cool our brains off. Gotta get that brain cooling in there. We'll also take a drink anytime Charles Jackson says something that's factually accurate, and he's not just quoting from something. If he actually has a factually accurate idea in his brain, which he expresses with his vocal organs, or I guess if he signs it, which I don't think I've ever seen him sign, but like, hey, I don't know, maybe he can sign. If he does, it still counts. So, you know, I don't want to be exclusionary to the signing community here.
My sister does a lot of sign language stuff.
Nice. I learned a fair...
So we'll call her in to, like, translate for us.
I learned a little bit of signing. My dad, when he was getting his degree, his special focus was in education for the deaf, so he was pretty good at sign language. And a cousin who lived nearby was also deaf, and we hung out, so, you know, I picked up some sign language there. So, you know, I have minor connections to signing. I haven't used it in years, so I'm extremely rusty. But I do usually know enough to tell if what a movie or TV show is using as sign language is just random motions or if it's American Sign Language. So there's that. I can tell. Like I noticed that
anytime you watch a movie, you can lean over and go, "That works."
Yeah, I guess I could. I don't usually. It was a little weird though that the sign language in a Marvel movie that's set in like the flashbacks with the sign language are set in like 6000 BC, and it's just a modern American Sign Language. I was like, okay, but is it weirder than that they're speaking English? And I was like, I guess not. It just feels weird. You know, whatever.
Was that Eternals? Or?
Yeah, it was the Eternals. Yeah, the sign language in that movie is all American Sign Language, even 7,000 years ago. And it's like, okay, but that's not... Is that actually weirder than them speaking English that long ago? No, it's not. It just feels weird.
America is like consciousness within panpsychism. Everything has a little bit of America in it. Oh. You have to get all those like particles expressing America into one place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right. Well, now I know the metaphysical nature of America.
Listen. I'm here to help. You know, that's why you have me here.
Yeah, no, that is very important information. All right, so we'll also take a drink anytime Charles Jackson tells a joke that doesn't land or tells a story that didn't happen. Now, Charles Jackson is less of a culprit with this than Kenthoven, so it doesn't come up quite as much, but that's okay. We'll also take a drink anytime Charles Jackson mentions that political party that was really popular in Germany in like the 1930s, and then they kind of fought a losing war on multiple fronts in the 40s, because, you know, multiple front wars always work out well. So does invading Russia in the winter. Always invade Russia in the winter. Never don't invade Russia in the winter. That is my tactical advice for all armies everywhere. Just
don't start a land war with China.
Yeah. Historically, invading Russia in the winter has always gone fabulously for the invader. Kind of like invading Afghanistan anytime, anywhere, by anyone. Always goes spectacularly well. Anyway, enough talking about war jokes. We will also take a drink if Charles Jackson mixes up what we can know about any Australopithecus or any wider taxon to which Lucy belongs with what we can know strictly from the skeleton Lucy, which is like AL288 or something like that. Is that?
I don't know.
I don't remember the designation. I did recently look up AL444-2, which is an Australopithecus afarensis skull. That was for a script. Yeah, so AL444-2 is in my latest script, which I am still slowly working on. We will also take a drink if either Jackson or I can, in fact, successfully predict what Charles Jackson is going to say next when it's not very, very obvious. There are also a few ways that you guys can get us to take drinks. We can get us to take a drink by saying AIG is a bag of dicks, which we already had one person do. You can also get us to take a drink if you send super chats or membership milestone chats, in which we have one of the kaiju emojis. We have 3. We have Godzilla, we have King Ghidorah, and we have Mothra. You do have to be a channel member for that, though. We will also take a drink if people gift memberships. Up to about 30, we'll take 1 per, and if we get to 30, I'm just going to finish this entire glass of Whiskey Mule and go get another one, and then add whatever the number is to the counter. So there you go. Also, of course, we do have a donation goal. If we can get to 100%, I will have a fancy avatar in the... I'll add 1 fancy avatar to the queue because I already have 1 in the queue. And, of course, Bent will get free pizza. With that being said, I think that covers pretty much all of... Oh, wait, no. If Mothra or Godzilla come by audibly, which could happen, we will take a drink for that. And also, if Charles Jackson cites a source and we check the source, and not only does the source fail to support his claims, but actively contradicts them, we call that a Trojan source and we take a drink. Now I think that's done. Jackson, are you able to be more prepared for Charles Jackson, Bad Jackson?
I honestly don't think I'm able.
All right, well then, here we go.
Nor am I willing.
Well, you did answer the call when I called. On the 3rd attempt, but whatever.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
And then move forward.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
But they don't have, now the lie is a lie because they're not even admitting that they put them in the wrong order. And maybe Sylvia Mader and her book don't even know. Maybe they didn't read the whole article in National Geographic, or maybe they did and they're liars.
So he's talking about a different chart that uses some of the same animals for basically the same reason. And he's complaining again that it's not in chronological order, except if you look under the chart to see why they're being put in that order, what you're looking at is a cladogram. And cladograms aren't generally put in any kind of chronological order at the terminal branches, because it doesn't really matter, because you're looking at degree of relatedness. So once again, Charles Jackson is just like, oh, these people are lying, and his reason for saying that is that he doesn't understand what he's looking at. Which is really, really dumb, and I'm also thirsty, so I'm going to call it as a drink. Also, we may get through this this video today. If so, I have one already in the queue ready to play, so don't worry.
Nice.
Yeah.
But whatever happened, the devil managed to get this in a textbook.
Guys, the devil is directing textbook editors. I really want to know what the devil does day to day in Charles Jackson's mind. Because apparently a lot of it has to do with like data tables and influencing textbooks editors. It's a really, really weird kind of Satan that he's got going on. And also presumably like interfering with evangelical Christian sound setups because, you know, a sound setup is notoriously reliable and never buggy kind of a thing.
Rapper, have you seen Miracle Workers, the show with Daniel Radcliffe?
No, I have not.
Okay, so partial spoiler for anybody. Sorry. I mean, the show is several years old now, so it should be fine. Daniel Radcliffe can do. So he's one of God's angels, right? Steve Buscemi is God. And in the show, he can answer prayers. Daniel Radcliffe, one of the angels, can answer prayers, but he can't do it in any way that is like outwardly supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if somebody like loses their keys and they pray, like, "Hey, you know, can God help me find my keys?" Well, he can like shoot little gusts of wind to like move the leaves so that your keys they appear.
Oh,
So maybe Satan does something similar.
he
You know,
just
Yaks.
he blows on a stack of academic papers until only the ones he wants in the textbook are left.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. That's my hypothesis.
Okay.
You could
Maybe.
call it a oh god, what was the word that Dr. Rana used? Not supernatural, hypernatural. It's our hypernatural hypothesis.
Yes, yes. Although I think that he probably would not extend that to Satan. In case anyone is wondering, hypernaturalism is apparently the idea that this is from Fuzzrana, and look, Fuzz, if you're watching this and I get this wrong, let me know. I'll fix it. But the idea that I got from it was basically God did it, but you can't tell except that it seems unlikely. Which, I mean, okay, I don't really have a way to assess that, so like, sure. Rail Gatubello for $2. I don't even know. I don't know what language I'm supposed to be looking at, and there's definitely diacritics over letters, and I'm not used to having diacritics, and I don't know what they mean. So, oh, wait, are we? Is that supposed to be like chat Arabic, but with like? Okay, Rail Gatsbella, help me out here. What am I looking at? Because Bilgenesi? That makes it seem Arabic. Maltese. Okay, well that's why it seems Arabic. Okay. No, Maltese. Okay. Yeah, because huwa he in Arabic. Okay. So I'll try assuming that it's Arabic, and I'm guessing at what the diacritics mean. Which we'll take a drink for, because I'm pretty sure that's AIG is a bag of dicks. But in Maltese, which is a it's a language / dialect of Arabic. So, you know. It's also the only Semitic language to be an officially recognized language in the European Union. So,
nice.
There you go.
We love to see it.
Yeah, linguistic diversity is a fun stuff.
With no challenge, no admission that the chart is a fake.
Because it's not a fake, dude.
What does that even mean? It's a fake chart? How does one a fake chart?
I don't even know. It's not even misleading. It's just not doing what he wants it to do, so now he's angry about it. He's literally making something up to be angry at. Right? It's like that meme.
Man yells at cloud.
Seriously. Or like that meme where there's like the two kids being absolutely terrified of a little bunny, and the bunny is labeled like stuff you literally just made up.
The one with the person like puts a tent up in their like living room and makes little like cardboard cutout ghosts or whatever.
Yeah.
They lay down on the floor, yeah.
It's basically the same thing as like they're putting litter boxes in the classroom. A thing which never happened anywhere.
Yeah.
And yet it somehow became a talking point in American politics that they're putting litter boxes in the kids' classrooms. Except that they're not.
I love that we care more about that than like the homelessness problem, wars, foreign wars. Yeah, it's great. Education in this, state of education in this country, like that's cool. Cool stuff.
Made up things that are not happening, the most important kind of things.
Yep.
Bird fossils really existed. Some of them didn't have feathers, and some of them did. Some of them were birds, and some of them weren't. But there weren't any dinosaurs.
Oh, he also hasn't given us a definition for bird, so that's fun too. It's always fun to argue that Group X isn't a part of Group Y when you don't define either Group X or Group Y.
Birds. God, in the beginning, made people. He made two people, and he made monkeys. He never made any monkey people. Okay.
Well, people are monkeys, so even if you're right, he only made monkey people when he made people. We don't have any lizard people around, unless, David Icke is right, which, spoiler alert, he's not. Here's one way to tell. You won't become enlightened by wearing a teal windbreaker. So, there you go.
I'm sure that's a reference to something. I just I don't know the reference.
David Icke. David Icke, who was at one point a football player in England, decided that he was Christ and that the world was being run secretly by lizard people. And he's also one of the big pushers of the whole Nibiru idea. And for like a decade, he was always seen in a teal windbreaker or otherwise dressed in teal because it helped align his chakras so that he could be enlightened.
Maybe he just picked the wrong color for enlightenment, perhaps?
Yeah, maybe it was actually chartreuse.
Yeah. Common mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, there weren't any missing, like this suggests there were. Stephen Jay Gould, one of the most famous atheists and evolutionists from the 20th century, said this in Natural History magazine in an article he entitled Abscheulich, which means atrocious in German. Look what he said.
Okay, wait, pause.
Okay.
I know what this stupid article is about. This is the article where he talks about the Haeckel embryos, because unfortunately, Gould kind of fell for the some of the bashing of Haeckel's embryo drawings when they actually weren't that bad.
Yeah.
They were pretty good for his time. And subsequent editions of Haeckel's popular book, it was not a scientific work, it was a popular work. The subsequent editions of it got even better because the first edition had a couple errors in it. That got better with time. Also, as like time has gone on, we have like better microscopes now. We don't have to do drawings. We can just take literal photos of embryos. But this article is often quoted by creationists because it feeds into that narrative. It's just, I mean, I like Gould. Gould did a lot of good work, but this is one place where it's like, oh man, kind of messed up on that one.
Okay. Also, I have put up a super chat goal. If we can get the super chat goal done within an hour, I will try my darndest to speak a language that was literally requested in my Discord, which is Sankheli, which is indeed a fictional sci-fi language that I do not speak and have not studied, and only have the vaguest idea of how to pronounce. So, yeah, that was... I was told that people would literally pay money to hear me speak Sankheli. So, if that is actually true and not a lie, it should be easy for this super chat goal to get accomplished. So
Are
there
you a
you go.
Game of Thrones fan?
I fell off somewhere in season like 5.
Okay, but you're aware of the Valyrian.
Yes.
Yeah. So Duolingo now has Valyrian.
Oh, I know.
It
also has Dothraki, and it has Sindarin, which is an Elvish language from Tolkien, and it has Klingon, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's whack. One of my coworkers is obsessed with Game of Thrones, and so she is learning Valyrian.
Hey, look, here's the thing. Sometimes it's okay to learn a language for fun and not because you plan to travel or use it in business. It's fine. If you find it fun to go do nerdy shit like learning Valyrian, then please do it. Learning a language is good for you. It's good for your brain. It's good for like keeping your mind active in the same way that like solving puzzles is, right? Go do it.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have any plans to use it. Now, I would suggest that maybe if you like language learning, you do pick up at least some degree of a real language, like Spanish or French or sign language or something.
Mm-hmm.
Something that will in fact help you. But still, if learning Klingon or Valyrian or Dothraki or whatever is fun, then please go do it. All right.
1000. Once ensconced in the textbooks, misinformation becomes cocooned and effectively permanent because textbooks copy from what? That chart got in a bunch of textbooks I saw.
I take serious issue with that because when I was at LSU Baton Rouge, I remember that we had we went through like 2 different versions of the biology textbook. It was like, or 2 or 3 different versions. It was like semester to semester. They put out different versions of this biology textbook. The idea that it just gets slapped in a textbook and then it's forever on the shelf is such a nonsense idea.
Yeah.
Like the textbooks are always being updated, corrected. There's material being added. That's always happening. You can find like 19th edition of like conceptual physics or whatever. Like it's so silly. This is just something creationists say because they have no part in the textbook making process.
Well, to be
which
fair,
I find
Gould
odd.
also said it.
Yeah, I mean, Gould said it, and I do feel it's kind of maybe he was being just hyperbolic when he said it because it is kind of a silly thing to say. But creationists also say it a lot, um, which is odd for Charles Jackson here because his degree is in master's degrees, or sorry, his doctorate is in education. So he of all people
Yeah, he should know better. Right. We got Renee, intellectually gerrymandered reborn for $5, who says, "Did you make your whiskey mule with the ginger beer that if stored in a bag would be an AIG?" Well, first we're going to take a drink for that, and second, I did not. So, and then for $5, Rael Gatubello says, "Learning conlangs can help you understand how natlangs work. I would say Klingon and Esperanto helped me in that regard." That's pretty interesting. I know very little Esperanto. Also, Origami Swami, not for Super Chat, says, "Does it take different skills to learn a constructed language versus a real language?" So first, the word real is a little weird there. That's why we use natural languages instead, because, I mean, ultimately, if you can learn it and use it in a conversation, and it can be meaningfully decoded by people with linguistic, meaning behind it, then it's a real language, no matter whether or not it's constructed. So, for instance, if an entire country of people just adopted Klingon as their language, that would be the language you would learn to go there, and it would become a living language that would evolve with a population of speakers. That being said, it does not really require a different set of skills. However, you do have to have the set of skills that it takes to learn a constructed language are applicable to any language. However, many natural languages have abundant resources that lower the skill barrier to learning, right? So if you want to learn Spanish, holy crap, you can find dozens and dozens of textbooks and references and grammars and workbooks and reading, like suggested reading for different levels of Spanish speakers and whatnot, just by walking into a bookstore, right? If you want to learn Klingon, there's like a Facebook group you can join. There's the Klingon Language Institute mail course that you can take. By mail, as far as I know, is still how it's delivered. Like snail mail, like stamps. There's the dictionary. There's the one app. And that's not Duolingo. And there's Duolingo. That's basically it. There are not tons of, I'm sorry, like graded reading material. There's, I think, if you want reading material in Klingon, there are 3 Shakespeare plays that have been translated. Parts of the Bible have been translated. I believe The Art of War has been mostly translated by Sun Tzu. And I know of at least one novel-length work of fiction that was originally written in Klingon, Chatmonme. So, yeah. And there are a few YouTube videos here and there. That's it. So, the skills that it takes to learn a conlang are going to be similar to the skills that it takes to learn a very unusual or rare natlang. So, for instance, it would be a lot more like learning Coptic, right? A language that doesn't have a living speaking community and does not have a lot of widely available English sources. So you're going to have to really, really work hard to get that done. So that's the difference. Here we go.
This stuff came out in National Geographic, and it's there forever now because they copy from old textbooks.
He wasn't talking about that from National Geographic. He was talking about Haeckel. So, hey, remember that time that Charles Jackson was complaining about National Geographic lying, even though they said what they were actually doing right on the same page?
Huh?
And you know how now he's telling us something about this article that's just blatantly not true? And not telling us on any page. I kind of feel like maybe when he's looking for people who are lying about science, he should look in the mirror.
The call is coming from inside the house.
Yes, it is. Rael Gatubello says, Klingon romanization sucks, though. This is correct. It's so transparently designed for actors to read. Also true. But no actual linguist in universe would use ugly mixed case. Correct. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. The English, well, the romanization for Klingon is atrocious, and it's ugly. and I don't like it. And you know what? The Klingon-speaking community has already had this discussion, like, do we have to use the ugly romanization that Mark Okren gave us? And the answer is no, we don't, but we're going to anyway. Because it is a standard. It is what everyone who just comes into the language from getting the Klingon dictionary will be familiar with. It is already in use and has been for a while. And so, yeah, that's just how it landed. There were attempts to say, like, well, maybe we can drop the capitalized I because it's confusing, and it will be less confusing if it were just lowercase I. And even that didn't make headways. That just didn't. I don't know. I wish there could be some kind of romanization reform, but I think it would have to come from Mark Okrand, and it would probably also have to come with a new edition of the Klingon dictionary. There is an alternate mapping that is used for Klingon card fonts, so using the Klingon alphabet. Which doesn't have mixed case and does not involve like weird trigraphs and whatnot. In fact, doesn't have any even digraphs. However, it is very confusing if you see it written out in the Latin alphabet with the same mapping because it's very unintuitive. So, like F is used for the ng sound, and X is used for k. And so yeah, it's a little if you wanted to just type it out. Dutch Tunicate Demonic Selection says, J'ai parlé pour toi parler en français avec un accent québécois. Here's the problem with that. I don't actually have the ability to do a good Quebecois accent, so I basically can't. So sorry about that. You'll have to keep open because yeah, it's probably not going to happen because I don't know that I can successfully reproduce it. In part because I haven't spent enough time listening to Quebecois speakers to actually know what the characteristic changes to their speech patterns are that would allow me to successfully mimic a Quebecois accent. Vladimir says, sort of like modern Chinese transliteration. Yeah, it's kind of like that, except the reason that it's weird are different. So the reasons it's weird is just so it can map onto a keyboard easily.
Books, and they keep the things they like. There's Dr. Fiducia again.
Oh, you know what? Fiducia is just a new drink trigger, as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to forget it later, but just drink for Fiducia.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Because, okay, for those of you who don't know, Alan Fiducia is basically the guy who has now more or less been laughed out of, like, serious scientific conversation as a result of, for decades, simply continuing to ignore all evidence that birds are dinosaurs in favor of his idea that basically they're just a surprise survival of a different group of archosaurs from the Triassic who left no fossil record until the mid-Jurassic, ever, anywhere. And just happened to meet the, anatomical definition for dinosaurs by coincidence. Just coincidence. And he has redefined basically the entire group of Maniraptora as just being birds and not dinosaurs at all. And that would include like Velociraptor, and it would include Troodon and Oviraptor and Therizinosaurus and a few other things like Unalagids and whatnot. So yeah, it's really, really dumb. Oh, Avelosaurids too. Oh, no, not Avelosaurs. What is it? The ones that
Alvarezsaurids?
Alvarezsaurids, thank you. There you go. Wow, good job. I'm kind of surprised you got that one. I'm impressed. Ray Elgatabella for $2 says, Fiducia probably deserves his own drinking rule. Yeah, basically. He is the favorite paleoornithologist of creationists, and he absolutely hates it. Because he rightfully points out that none of his ideas actually lend any support to creationism at all. Because remember, he's not claiming that these birds aren't transitional birds. He's just claiming they're not transitions between dinosaurs and birds. But he still says that they're transitional between their more basal archosaur ancestors and modern birds. So, what good is it to cite him? The answer is it's no good. It doesn't help at all.
Archaeopteryx, early bird catches a can of worms. And he said this: paleontologists have tried to turn Archaeopteryx into an earthbound feathered dinosaur.
Which was an idea previously. Now the consensus has shifted pretty solidly to Archaeopteryx was at least partially arboreal. if not mostly arboreal.
But it's not. It's a bird, a perching bird. And no amount of paleobabble is going to change that.
Yeah, here's the problem with that. That was based in part on the idea that the hallux or big toe of Archaeopteryx was inverted, like you see in most birds, like songbirds, so that it could grip branches. But it wasn't.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's just wrong.
Yep, it's just wrong. Now, to be fair, at the time, it was the consensus that it probably did have an inverted hallux because of a taphonomic artifact in one of the most famous examples, which I believe was the Berlin specimen, where, as a result of the process of preservation, one of the halluxes, or helices? I don't even know how to pluralize that word.
Helices, I like that.
Yeah, helices. We're going to go with helices. One of the helices was artificially turned backwards in a post-mortem event. And that was taken as the life condition. Turns out more and better skeletal remains were found, and no, it wasn't inverted. So, yeah, it wasn't a perching bird because it couldn't perch, because it physically didn't have the foot anatomy to do so. So there's the quote-unquote paleobabble that, in fact, did overturn that. Now, does that mean that Archaeopteryx was primarily a ground, animal that ran a lot and didn't climb trees? No, I still think it spent a lot of time in trees. And if you look at modern art of Archaeopteryx, it's primarily portrayed as being arboreal. So, there you go.
If I was an evolutionist, I'd be really sweating in my boots.
Why? Because one widely widely mocked and basically laughed out of academia guy says stupid things? That's why you'd be sweating in your boots? Okay.
Wetting my pants, overflowing my depends, I would.
There's a joke that didn't really land. We'll take a drink.
Still didn't stop this. Look what happened in 2003, and then I'm about to close up, but it's ridiculous. They were embarrassed. The Smithsonian said, you're going to be embarrassed. Fiducia says, you should be embarrassed. We believe evolution, but not.
Is this just back to Archaeoraptor?
It has to be, because
we already did Archaeoraptor. But we already did Archaeoraptor.
Everything is about Archaeoraptor except Archaeoraptor. Archaeoraptor is about Piltdown Man.
In case you guys don't know, Archaeoraptor, which if you've been keeping up with the series, you do know, but there's new people. So in case you don't know, Archaeoraptor was a composite fossil made of a Microraptor and then some other animal, I don't remember what it was, which was presented to National Geographic as a brand new feathered dinosaur. And it was in fact a composite, and numerous paleontologists looked at this, and all of them unanimously said, yeah, no, you should not publish on this. This is a composite. Don't do this. And National Geographic was like, no, we're going to do it anyway. And yeah, they did it, and it turns out, oh no, it was in fact a composite. Oh, boo-hoo, there was no such thing as Archaeoraptor. And for some reason, Charles Jackson thinks that National Geographic, which is not a peer-reviewed journal, is not where science is done. It's just a popular science communication magazine. He thinks that them going against the advice of all scientists who were, asked, is somehow a failure of evolutionary biology. Even though I feel like if every single scientist got it right, and the only people who got it wrong were the non-scientists who just wanted to sell magazines, that actually that's a win for science. But I don't know. Nestle20 says it was Microraptor and Yanornis. Okay. I don't remember, but I believe that is it, and that is plausible. Then, for $2, Rael Gatubello says, red pandas and squirrels have no inverted hallux. This is correct. Yeah, it does not require... You don't have to have an inverted hallux to spend time in trees. It does help, though.
I do it all the time.
Have an inverted hallux or spend time in trees?
The latter.
Oh, okay. Naram Duplitz, who's been a member for 14 months, says, that time Nat Geo dated a composite fossil. Yeah, basically. Alright, here we go.
Not that dinosaurs gave rise to the birds. Some other reptile in our evolution story did it. But this fossil was found of a Velociraptor and a Sauroptian dinosaur.
Sauroptian dinosaur?
A Sauroptian dinosaur.
So, I'm going to take a drink for Sauroptian dinosaur. Because there's no such thing as a Sauroptian dinosaur. He's trying to say ceratopsian dinosaur.
Is he? Okay.
Because this is Protoceratops, which is in fact a ceratopsian dinosaur.
What's Ceratopsian dinosaur?
Well, Ceratopsian dinosaur is just nothing. Ceratopsian means horn-headed dinosaur, and it refers to the horns that were on Neoceratopsians, but actually weren't on Protoceratopsids like Protoceratops. So, you know, it's a weird name.
Both killed when a wet sand dune fell on them and buried.
No, it was a dry sand dune. That's just a lie. We'll take a drink.
Dune. The famously wet Gobi Desert.
Yes. It was a dry sand dune in a desert that has been a desert since before the time of the dinosaurs. Well, what? Since the time of the dinosaurs, at least. Yeah. Everything about this is the... it's like the Jadochta Formation or something like that. I can't remember the exact... Look, it's a Mongolian word, and I don't know Mongolian, so sorry. Although I do think Mongolian... One of the Mongolian alphabets is one of my favorite alphabets, though. So there's that. I say one of them because Mongolian has been written with like 6 different alphabets. It's ridiculous. So, regardless of all that, yeah, that formation is entirely alien. There is no evidence that it was a wet sand dune, and all of the evidence points towards it being a dry sand dune, because the cross-bedding in the formation sandstone is characteristic of wind-borne sand dunes. So, yeah, literally the only reason he says it was a wet sand dune is because he's trying to say this happened under a flood. But here's what doesn't normally happen under a flood. Animals don't usually get into, like, predation versus predator versus prey fights in the middle of trying to run away from a flood. Not normally what happens. And we know
However,
this.
Chickens will lay eggs as they run away from floodwaters.
Yes, in a straight line, as we know from Carl Baugh.
Yes.
Because Carl Baugh once once was presented with a linear dinosaur nest in which there were like, I think it was like a dozen or so eggs laid 2 by 2 in a row. And he was like, "Oh, this is amazing. It must have been laying these eggs as it was running from the flood." Like, yeah, it was taking the time to drop one egg and then another one next to it and then step forward and do it again 6 times while running from the rising floodwaters. That makes all sorts of sense, Carl.
Because he could hear it off, or sorry, she could hear it off in the distance. You know, she could hear the waters coming. So she was like, I got a little bit of time.
A little bit. I can make a little tiny nest, but I have to keep moving in this direction. I'll just slow down, just slow enough to lay these 12 or so eggs. Yep. What an idiot Carl Baugh is.
Them in the middle of a fight, and this is the fossil they found. Locked in deadly combat, the Ceratopsian dinosaur...
He's just doubling down on it. It wasn't just like a slip of the tongue. He doesn't actually know the word Ceratopsian. He thinks it's actually Ceratopsian.
Bananas.
I'm taking another
He's
drink.
giving a talk on dinosaurs, and he does not know the word Ceratopsian.
Not only that,
Bananas.
Look, here's the thing. I could imagine him doing that if Ceratopsians didn't come up in the talk, right? But then someone just asked a question, and he screwed that up.
Mm-hmm.
But no, this is in his slides. He had to consciously put this in his slides, and then just not bother to get right what's actually in his slides. Like, if I came up to give a talk about, like, I don't know, like tetnuran theropods, and then I screwed up the word Ceratopsian, that's one thing. But if I came up to give you a talk about, like, you know, megafaunal herbivore diversity in Cretaceous North America, which would obviously include a lot of ceratopsians, and then I couldn't come up with the word ceratopsian, that'd be a different story.
Yeah.
All right.
Actually has the Velociraptor's front arm in his teeth, and the Velociraptor...
Well, in his mouth. The teeth are pretty far back in ceratopsians, and they're not really for, like, you know, biting on animals or for crushing down and turning into paste plant matter. But whatever, it's a minor thing.
has his killing claw behind the neck shield on the Ceratopsian.
Oh, I'm going to take a drink. I just can't with Ceratopsian. Oh, so you could just say Protoceratops if that's easier for you, man.
Right.
It's a Protoceratops.
Protoceratopsian. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. That's probably what you would say. Jeez.
But there's the 2 fossils. But look at how they drew them In National Geographic, when they did the artist's conception, look at the picture up atop above the fossil. The Velociraptor's entire body is not covered with scales, but feathers.
Well, given that we found feathers on Microraptor, and they're in the same subfamily as Velociraptor, not just the same family, the same subfamily, and given that Velociraptor is known to have ulnar quill knobs, and the only reason to have quill knobs is if you have quills, and quills are feathers, yeah, we have pretty conclusive evidence that Velociraptor should be feathered. In fact, AIG has recently tripled down on Velociraptor actually just being a bird. So, you know that old and long-standing problem that creationists have of different creationists will choose to assign different hominins
right
to human or ape categories, and they can't be consistent. In fact, even the same creationist will at different times assign the same hominin to either just ape or just human, depending on how they're feeling that day.
Right.
Yeah, that's basically what's happening with Velociraptor and whether it's a bird or a dinosaur with creationists. There are now major creationist organizations, all of whom agree that birds aren't dinosaurs, but who can't figure out if Velociraptor is a bird or a dinosaur.
Right. And I do want to. So, what Charles Jackson just said here, because as Dapper said, creationists have long argued about this, and now they're mostly on board, it seems, with, at least AIG is, with Velociraptor was a bird. This fossil was found in 1971, Jedokta Formation. I'm sure I pronounced that
That's what I
incorrectly.
tried to say earlier.
So this fossil was found in 1971, which was before we had any non-avian dinosaurs with feathers. So like the quote dino birds, like Yanornis and Microraptor, things like that, those wouldn't be found until the 90s.
Yeah.
So like this was way before anybody thought any dinosaurs had feathers. Way before.
We're getting
So,
some
like, I
bingos
can't
in.
really do what?
We're getting some bingos in.
Oh, so yeah, I can't really blame them for this drawing, because that's, I mean, it'd be like getting mad at people in like, the 1890s, for instance, for drawing the like iguana looking.
Well, he's
dinosaurs.
angry because this one does have feathers, and he thinks it shouldn't. Because he's
He said
still...
it does have feathers.
Yeah, he's still on the Velociraptor didn't have feathers version of this.
Fascinating. Okay, so he's not on the Velociraptors were birds train like David Minton, for instance.
Right.
Okay, so I love that he's bucking the AIG trend.
Yeah.
Fun.
Well, AIG seems to be the only ones who are going full Fiducia when it comes to all Maniraptorans or birds, except when they're not, because sometimes they're not, according to them.
Well, because the Ark Park has they're all featherless. They're theropods.
So that's the thing. In their recent Beyond the Bones thing, they tripled down on Velociraptor is a bird. But when I called the Ark Encounter and asked if they still had the animatronic Velociraptor up in their section about the consequences of Adam's fall, which depicts Velociraptor as a big scaly monster, the woman who I talked to said that yes, it was still up. So yeah, they're just in the mixed messages. My Unfinished Journey for $6.66 says, "Hail Nero, hail Daps, and good Jacks. Shaking my head at the image of dinos carefully laying eggs that will soon be destroyed by the flood. Stay safe, kiddos. Thank you very much, and you stay safe too."
There wasn't a single feather found on that Velociraptor, but his entire body is covered in feathers, just like the owl's feathers. And they drew it this way anyway.
Okay. Do you have... Charles, do you have evidence that would overcome the preponderance of evidence of finding Velociraptor ulnar quill knobs and Microraptor feathers that would allow us to actually find it reasonable to say that Velociraptor, unlike its close relatives and unlike its own anatomy indicates, didn't have feathers? Or do you just have Alan Fiducia, who still says it had feathers, saying it wasn't a dinosaur? Or are you just going to double down that it was a dinosaur? Even though your own source, Alan Fiducia, doesn't agree with you. And even though other creationists, including in this Dow AIG, as well as people who are slightly smarter than AIG, like Marcus Ross, saying, nope, in fact, it was a dinosaur and it did have feathers. Well, AIG says it wasn't a dinosaur, but it did have feathers. Like, what possible reason do you have for saying it didn't have feathers, other than that you think it was a dinosaur, and that you've dogmatically decided that dinosaurs didn't have feathers for no reason, because it's definitely not a requirement of young Earth creationism.
This wasn't fact. This wasn't evidence. This wasn't an observation. This isn't the scientific method. This is...
Man, who knew that older quill knobs don't count as observations? I'm just going to take a drink. Look, man, is that the same as finding feathers? No. But here's the thing. We say Velociraptor had feathers for the same reason we say it had eyes, right? Why do we think Velociraptor had eyes? Well, because its skull had a hole for eyes. Why do we think Velociraptor had feathers? Well, because its arm had notches for feathers. Okay. There you go. That's it.
That seems pretty reasonable to me.
Yep. Yep. That's it. That's all we need.
10. This is radical, fanatical faith.
Yes, noticing the evident anatomy implied by bones is faith. So I guess by that standard, thinking that, I don't know, Velociraptor had eyes is also faith. See how this is extremely stupid? I'm taking another drink.
It's not science. It's not the scientific method. Science should be based on observations and evidence and measurements.
You mean like measuring those quill knobs? Okay.
Not on you changing the evidence and then showing it to people with your make-believe lie on it. You know, I'm not...
It will never cease to amaze me the amount of projection that Charles Jackson is capable of. He will sit here and lie about what Stephen Jay Gould was talking about to our faces. Verifiably. Very easily verifiably. He will just pretend that we don't have any evidence for feathers in Velociraptor. And then he has the audacity to accuse other people of lying. It is hard for me to imagine how it will be possible for Charles Jackson to be a less honest individual. Like,
I'm not calling these people liars. I'm saying they wanted...
You're absolutely calling them liars, Charles Jackson. You're calling them liars while you yourself are lying to us. And to these kids in your audience. You are doing the exact thing that you are accusing these people of doing, and don't tell me that you're not calling them liars when all you've done is characterized their use of the actual evidence as it presents itself as lies. Or you've accused them of doing things that they said they weren't even doing. Sounds like a lie to me. I would say that numerous people would now have grounds to sue Charles Jackson for slander. Not that they would likely, recover much in damages, because there probably wouldn't be much damages. Because here's the other thing. No one gives a shit about creationism outside of the tiny world of creationism and the people who fight it. Scientists don't give a damn. They just don't. They are busy doing science. So there probably was no reputational damage. And I doubt it probably rises to the level of defamation per se.
It'd be so true, so bad, they just can't stop themselves. Don't put your faith in that kind of thing. Don't put your faith in that kind of radical...
Yeah, don't put your faith in science. Put your belief in science after it has shown you the evidence as to why scientists have come to the conclusion they have come to in overwhelming consensus. Do that. It doesn't require faith. It just requires you following the evidence. It's the nice thing about science. You don't have to have any faith to believe in science. Yep. Not a bit. Anything in science that you think seems fishy, you can go find the evidence for, and you will see why the consensus is what it is. Granted, that might take a lot of effort. Well, okay. If you don't want to go through the effort, then yeah, you might have to just believe the scientists. But if you really think it's important to know for certain whether or not there is warrant to accept science, you can investigate it. It's not hidden. There's no like secret vault that you have to enter after, going through the 20 trials of your mental fortitude and like defeating the guardian of the vault before you get in. Like, you don't have to do any of that stuff. Just read the papers. Of course, some of the papers are paywalled, and if you want to read the papers for free, what you should not do is go to Sci-Hub. Don't go to sci-hub.se. Don't do that.
That's because it doesn't exist after. You can't go to a place like Sci-Hub that doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah. It's just too bad. If only it existed, and that you could go to it
That would be
and
nice.
use it to like
But it would also be illegal,
run
so don't do that.
URLs to it or something. Yeah, it's just too bad it doesn't exist. Sorry.
Cult-like fanatical religious belief. It's not science. It's not even a respectable religion.
What makes a religion respectable in the eyes of Charles Jackson? Hey,
We don't have enough holidays and rituals.
I mean, that might be true. I think evolution would be more fun if it came with holidays. I guess it comes with Darwin Day, but no one does.
February 12th.
Is that Darwin Day?
Yeah. I
Right, so
celebrate February 12th.
That's one. It
Yes.
needs more. It needs at least 4 more.
True. Didn't the asteroid hit in the spring, didn't it? So like we need a spring.
I think it was spring or early
Holiday.
summer.
Yeah, something like that. So we need a late spring or early summer holiday for like death of the dinosaurs day or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. But here's I just want to point something out. What Charles Jackson thinks of as a respectable religion is obviously his own. His own religion, which says that you're going to hell if you're doing things like being gay, or being trans, or not joining his religion. I find those things to be not respectable. And yet, I'm not going around out here saying that, I don't respect Charles Jackson's religious positions, because other than the ones that directly contradict science, I don't care that much, because I don't really... I mean, what am I going to say? I think you're wrong about mistreating gay people? Yeah, obviously I do. But, like, I don't have papers to say that it's wrong. I just have, this thing called basic human decency. But yeah, I would say that a religion that does, in fact, say that you shouldn't treat people with basic human decency because of irrelevant details of their personal lives, yeah, that's not respectable. So if we're going to play the respectability game when it comes to religion, and we're going to pretend that science is a religion, guess what? Evangelical Christianity isn't going to come out on top on that one. And I say that knowing and respecting plenty of evangelical Christians. Of course, they're often the ones that Charles Jackson would say are too progressive. So, anyway.
It's an urban myth.
Okay, urban myths are folk tales that begin and spread around in cities, in city centers and urban environments. Even if this were a myth, it wouldn't be an urban myth because it's not a folk tale. You know how I can tell? Because people don't sit around telling stories about the evolution of birds. They do sit around telling stories about, like, the hook-handed escapee from the asylum that almost got the couple that were canoodling in their car at Makeout Point. That's an urban myth.
I mean, maybe what if birds gather their children in campers around the fire and tell them about the day the asteroid came to Earth?
Then it still wouldn't be an urban myth because birds don't build cities. So it would just be a myth.
But they're in urban areas. What if it's in an urban area?
It's not a bird urban area though. The humans built it.
Like pigeons.
Maybe it counts for pigeons. Alex Markle says science says touching yourself is actually good for you, unlike evangelical Christianity. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Yep, there are definite actual health benefits according to science, but forget that. It's evolution that's not respectable.
It needs lies. Evolution is the only scientific theory that needs laws to protect it.
What?
I'm sorry, I'm not aware of any such laws.
What he's complaining about is the fact that numerous times it has been ruled that it is unconstitutional in the United States to teach evolution in public classrooms as science. Here's the thing. The reason that it's the only scientific theory that has such cases against it is because it's the only theory that has a large-scale campaign of well-funded agitators trying to get it taken out of science classrooms and replaced with religious pseudoscience. If say flat Earth got to be as big as young Earth creationism, and there were people pushing to have flat Earth taught, then guess what? There would be court decisions against flat Earth and in favor of, like, you know, well, heliocentrism in the broad sense of, like, the sun is roughly the center of the solar system, even though really it's the bare center of all the mass of the solar system, which is often just outside the surface of the sun. Who cares? Not worried about that. So, yeah. Or if there was just, like, a huge contingent of people saying, like, germ theory of disease, we're going to try to get that removed from the classroom. Then there would be, in fact, court cases supporting the germ theory of disease.
Don't say that too loud. You might be surprised.
Yeah, well, I'm actually expecting that to be happening here in the United States in the next few years. I am fully expecting us to start getting legal battles over getting things like crystal healing and you can just eat enough plants and herbs to cure your cancer into the classrooms, and lawsuits to try to stop it. And given the Supreme Court now, I don't know where that's going to go, which means that things like channels like mine and Jackson's are probably going to be more important here in the next few years than ever before. So do what you can to support people like us who are trying to keep science, supported and to debunk pseudoscience, because we are going to have our work cut out for us. So yeah, hey, we're going to take a break real quick and I'll tell you how you can help support. So we'll be back in just a little bit.
Next time on Star Trek Lexington.
Captain's Log, Stardate 6142.5. The mining colony of Coriolanus 4 has failed to check in for their status update. The colony is a key source of beryllium ore, which is important for the manufacture of high-strength alloys used in armor hull plating, survival gear, and energy containment devices. The colony has been in operation for 2 Earth years without any major incidents past relatively minor injuries. I expect a routine repair of their subspace transmitter, but as the Janus 6 incident shows us, we have to be ready for anything, even silicon-based cave slugs that don't understand pronoun case. We are proceeding to the Coriolanus system at Warp 4. Our contact on the colony is Dr. Akio Haruhito. He is a Starfleet geologist assigned to the colony and the only member of Starfleet on the planet. His reports have been regular and detailed, if a bit boring for my tastes, but I suppose that's why I leave the science to the scientists. We are expected in the system by the end of the day.
Coriolanus 4 is a Class K world with a thin atmosphere of mostly carbon dioxide. Like Janus 6 and Cestus 3 before it, Coriolanus is a colony on the edge of Federation space. It is a vital resource for Starfleet, but, given its remote location, it is rarely visited by Starfleet vessels. Now they face a threat like none the Federation has encountered before. Spaceborne creatures have descended on the colony, killing inhabitants and destroying infrastructure. Are they simply brute creatures acting on instinct, or are they sapient creatures attacking in conquest or in defense of what they consider their own territory? The crew of the Lexington and Dr. Haruhito must solve the mystery together to save the lives of the colonists in Fury of the Hive.
Hey, we are back. Welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us. So, here are some things. If you are, in fact, enjoying what we do here on Dapper Dinosaur, and the show in particular, or you're just, you like me, feel like science communication and debunking pseudoscience is going to be more important now than ever, especially, as Fearmonger said, now that AIG has a foot in the door of the actual White House. Yep. The Speaker of the House of Representatives right now is, in fact, a writer for Answers in Genesis. So...
you hate to see it.
yeah, that is a thing. And, it is looking like the pseudoscience is probably going to be winning. We have an anti-vaxxer who's probably going to be the lead of Health and Human Services, and another...
oh, and that only gets worse, because another guy it has been nominated for the NIH, who is not an anti-vaxxer per se, but is a, like, COVID, quote, skeptic.
yeah.
So that's cool. That's cool. We love to see that.
So yeah, the original administration
had Matt Gaetz as AG.
Yeah, the original administration that already bungled COVID-19 and resulted in millions of deaths of Americans who had no reason to die.
By the way, on that front, initially it was reported that COVID had a 0.1 mortality rate or something like that. It's actually 0.1% mortality rate. Turns out is actually that number went up to 1%. So there's a 1% mortality, and America had about 1 million people die of COVID, which you might think, okay, well, 1 million people, that does sound pretty bad, until you realize that the entire world had about 7 million people. So we accounted for about what is it's like around 20%.
It's about an eighth. So yeah.
Yeah, so we accounted for a pretty significant portion of the world's deaths, despite having only a little more than 4% of the world's population.
So yeah, in other words, this is one of the worst countries for COVID-19. That's fun.
Yeah.
There were worse ones. But not many.
I'm sure there were.
Not many. Anyway, so yeah, that regime is coming back, and what controls there were in the first place are now gone. There's virtually no controls or safety rails left on that. So that means that channels like mine and Jackson's, which are fighting back against some aspects of the nonsense pseudoscience that are going to be becoming more prevalent, not just in America, but in the world stage. Remember, American foreign policy affects basically everyone on Earth. So if you are enjoying this channel and you would like to see, more science and less pseudoscience, support creators like me and Jackson and other people who are doing pseudoscience debunking. And you have a number of great ways to do that. There is the Patreon. There are channel memberships. The Patreon starts at $1 a month. You can get 15% off by going annual. The channel memberships start at $1.99. Both of them have higher tiers with better perks. They are generally monthly, but like I said, you can go annual on Patreon. You get early access to my scripted videos. You get access to my Discord server. It's a lot of fun. I think I have a pretty good community over there. And if a monthly or an annual pledge isn't your thing, I have a merch store. I have a wish list. There's a lot of ways to support. Also, Benthoven, my regular co-host, also has a wish list and a Patreon linked in the description. So, yeah. Please, if you can afford it, feel free to help out, because it's not going to get any easier from here for the foreseeable future. So, let's see. My Unfinished Sock for $2 says, don't be a projector, like and share the stream. Yes, I agree. Please do like and share whether or not you can support financially, because it is an essentially free way to help out the channel immensely. So with that depressing stuff out of the way, here's the last, 5 minutes, 4 minutes.
We don't need that for other scientific theories. There are laws against contradicting evolution in the schools.
Again, the reason that we don't have laws and court decisions about other theories is because people aren't trying generally to challenge them. Right? That's the reason. Those judgments do in fact also cover things like the Big Bang and actual geology. You can't teach flood geology or young Earth creation cosmology. in science classrooms as science, at least, because they're not science.
There are laws that say a teacher has to ask permission to teach creation. They don't.
I'm not aware of any such law. I'm not aware of any such court case. That, as far as I can tell, is just made up.
I mean, you could talk about it in a I don't know, world history or a comparative religions class, but again, you don't have to ask permission for that. But if you do talk about it in a science classroom, in not just to say like this is an idea some people have, it's incorrect. We're going to talk about why evolution is true. If you actually try to push young Earth creationism, then you can't be surprised when parents are sitting down in the principal's office or suing the school or what have you, because that is unconstitutional. You can't teach religious ideas as though they were actual fact.
Yep.
So.
Yep. At most, you can teach them as religious ideas in a class about things like comparative religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine. I mean, when I was in public schools, I had some classes about like what are the religions, the major religions of the world, and what are the basics of like their teachings and practices, right? Like when I was in public school, I learned about like the basics of like the main branches of Christianity, about Judaism, about Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam. So like, yeah, I learned the very I mean, could I have given you like a treatise on like advanced like Vedic theology? No, but like I could name a few Hindu gods, and I could probably recognize a Hindu temple as such. And I knew enough to know that symbol on the outside of a Hindu temple around Diwali time isn't actually a Nazi symbol.
Have to ask permission to teach evolution in the school. As a matter of fact, if the principal says you can't teach evolution, the school system can be sued.
I mean, I've never heard of that, but I would like to think that that's true. If a principal says you can't teach science, that person shouldn't be principal.
In a public school, yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're in private school, the rules are different. But yeah,
if it were up to me, it would also be true for private schools, but it's not up to me.
Oh, I listen. I agree. I agree with you. But like, yeah, it's the there have been a number of court cases in my state, our lovely Louisiana, because creationists have tried a number of different ways to make it more difficult to teach evolution. So, like one instance that got shot down in court was they had these stickers that they would put on biology textbooks.
Oh yeah, the warning stickers.
Yeah, the warning stickers, and that was like, nope, that's super unconstitutional. You can't do that.
My favorite thing about that is that the what is it, National Center for Science Education? They made that satirical fake sticker about gravity.
That I didn't know. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, they've done one that's basically the exact same wording, except it uses gravity and universal gravitation instead of evolution. But flat earthers have started using that as an actual attempt to say that gravity is quote unquote just a theory, and even the National Center for Science Education says so.
Literally can't be parodied
because it's already parody.
Zach Poplin, who is a journalist now, he got famous off of one of those cases in the late 90s or early 2000s, one of those. Because he was a high school student at the time, and he was kind of making waves about it. And I think he and Eugenie Scott did a it may have even been that one. That may have been that one. They worked together to try to fight that. So yeah, and then of course it was the case. Was it that one? Was that I'm drawing a blank on the case now. That declared creationism is religion, so it can't be taught in the science class, which is what caused the Dover trial.
Oh yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I don't remember the name of it either.
Gosh, I can't remember that name.
Anyway. Heather Schrodinger's Fossil Coon for $5 says, "Is Bat Jackson one of those creationists who thinks evolution includes geology and cosmology?" I'm going to have to go ahead and say yes. Virtually all of them just use evolution to mean whatever science I can't accept because of my preconceived notions about how the universe has to work based on my particular and rather weird reading of the Bible.
No, sorry, I'm getting my stuff mixed up. Zach Coplin campaigned against the Louisiana Science Education Act, which was basically going to, which was here in Louisiana, well, it was actually was passed and is still on the books apparently. Or sorry, wait, is it? Has it been? No, it
I
hasn't
don't
been
know.
repealed. Okay, cool.
Okay. Here we go.
Love that.
And if the principal says you can't teach creation,
Edwards v. Aguilar, by the way, was the
That
one.
was the case that decided creationism
Yeah.
cannot be taught in public schools. Yes.
Yep.
And then
Thank you,
later,
Jillian.
that's what. Yeah.
in your class, and I've taught in the public schools more than I've taught in Christian schools, well, almost equal now. I got away with teaching creation in the public schools because I got permission, and I taught both models.
Which I would argue should, in fact, not be allowed, but whatever.
So the students could compare. Oh, the devil doesn't like to have his lame-o theory compared to evidence that makes a lot of sense. And
I hope you were teaching comparative religion, because otherwise you were breaking the law.
Yeah. Plus, I'm going to take a drink. Here's the thing. It's not that the devil doesn't like real evidence. It's that people who value science, people who like things like the longer lifespan that medicine has given us, the technology that physics has given us, the better understanding of things like ecology and how to keep a healthy planet that things like ecology and evolutionary biology have given us. And evolutionary biology is also important to medicine, which ties back into, the longer life expectancies. People who like that kind of stuff don't like lying idiots dragging us back into, the 2nd century BC. That's what we don't like. That's what we get upset about. Because you know what? I don't want to return to a time when the life expectancy of a human struggled to get into the 30s. But that's what creationists are trying to drag us back into.
But have you considered that doctors are fake? So
I have not considered that. No.
Well, maybe you should.
Yeah.
You should consider that.
Maybe that is what I'm missing.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a creator. And a world full of shrill voices and agendas. We at National Geographic are committed to an unbiased presentation of the facts.
Yeah, it turns out that unbiased doesn't mean taking any position and giving it equal time. It means taking a look at the evidence. Sometimes one side isn't being favored because of a bias. It's being favored because they're just objectively right. Right? It's not unbiased to give the KKK equal airtime with someone who says, no, we shouldn't burn crosses in the front yards of black people, and no, we shouldn't bar them from certain jobs, and yes, we should give them equal rights under the law. That's not biased. There's just a right answer and a wrong answer. Similarly, it's not biased if you want to have an equal airtime debate between oxygen theory of fire on the one hand and phlogiston theory of fire on the other hand. One of those is just wrong. There's no good reason to have an quote-unquote unbiased debate between electric universe theory and actual cosmology. One of them is just wrong. Being unbiased doesn't mean just accepting any claim and letting it all be aired with equal weight in educational or news-based settings. That's not what bias means. Having a bias means favoring a particular side regardless of the evidence, at least to a certain point. But guess what? It doesn't mean that you don't come to a conclusion. It doesn't mean that you have to give equal opportunity to every crackpot who comes up with some kind of crazy idea that has no evidence for it. And literal, in this case, actual literal physical mountains of evidence against it. One of the things I will never let go of is the fact that there are literal physical mountains that, by their existence, disprove young Earth creationism. In fact, basically all mountains. Olivia Williams for $6.99 Beaverbuck says, so he lied to his students about evolution, Ghidorah. And yeah, that is in fact the conclusion that we would have to draw from that. And I will take a drink for the Ghidorah. So, yeah. Yeah, that's not a sign of bias. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't bias. I'm sure there is some anti-creationism bias. But there doesn't need to be any in order to exclude it from schools. All you need to have is a willingness to look at the evidence.
No, They're not. Yeah, I'm calling them liars.
Yeah, in one of the most stunning cases of projection I've ever seen.
But you got to call it sometime.
I agree. That time was several episodes ago there, Charles.
Sometime. Jesus called Satan a liar and the father of it. And he's been a liar from the beginning. And I'm calling these guys liars. They know better. They should know better. They're my colleagues in science. They're teaching.
Okay, look. Chuck. My guy. You pointing out things that aren't true doesn't make people who accept things that are true liars, right? Like when you say there's no evidence for Velociraptor having feathers, even though there is very, very good evidence for it, that doesn't make anyone a liar. You saying putting dinosaurs on a chart in order of their relatedness to birds is a lie because you think it should be a chronological chart doesn't make anyone a liar. However, when you do things like misdefine what evolution is and then pretend that, say, bacteria evolving antibiotic resistance is an evolution, then you are lying. When you say things like that the scientists thought Archaeopteryx was real, while also pointing out that everyone who was consulted on this said not to publish, but you still think that that's a loss for science, that that's science showing its bias in favor of evolution, that makes you a liar, verifiably so. When you pretend that Stephen Jay Gould was talking about dinosaur to bird transitional sequences in National Geographic when he was actually talking about Ernst Haeckel's embryo drawings, that makes you a liar. When you pretend that Alan Fiducia is on your side against bird evolution broadly, when he's explicitly not, and has said as much in response to creationists using his work, that makes you a liar. It is extremely obvious to anyone who bothers to check who's lying in this situation, and guess what? It's not the textbook writers. It's not the scientists. It's not even National Geographic. They're just dumb. It's very, very, very clearly Charles Jackson who's the liar in this situation.
Teachers, they're spreading, they're educating the public in their museums and their magazines and their journals and their reports and their research.
Yeah, they are. They are educating all of those people in those places. We'll take a drink. The first time today, when Charles Jackson says something that's true, we take a drink. They are indeed educating people in those places. At least for now.
And they're telling people that's stuff that's not true. Stuff they know is not true.
No, it's stuff you say isn't true, even though you yourself know you're lying. Okay, here's the thing. Look, creationists. If there's any creationists watching, the way that you get a change in science isn't by yelling lies at kids in a church. It's by doing science. Do the research. Go present your findings at a conference and get feedback. And then eventually, if you get enough feedback that you actually can make a real paper that can pass peer review, then you publish it. Here's the spoiler, though. You probably won't even get past the poster at a conference stage because you're just wrong. Everything you say that is indicative of you being right. Oh, drink from Mothra. Anyway, everything you say that would be an argument that you're right is laughably dumb to a level similar to that of Flat Earth. If you don't believe me, go check out my recent appearance on FTFE's channel where we talked about young Earth creationist dumb stuff, and a Flat Earth debunker marveled at the degree to which young Earth creationists sound like Flat Earthers. Because you do. You make all the same kinds of arguments. The only difference is that there's two differences. One, it's a bit easier to figure out that the Earth is a globe. Because basically, if you have video calling abilities and the ability to look outside and watch a sunset, that's all it takes. It takes more to know that the Earth is old and evolution is true. But, the scientific consensus isn't any weaker about the shape of the Earth versus the age of the Earth or evolution.
fossil didn't have a single feather on it, but they drew it that way anyway.
It didn't have a single eyeball on it either, Charles Jackson. Why aren't you complaining about that? What's so special about the feather? Oh, right. Because the feather part contradicts your special beliefs, but the eye part doesn't. Even though we have just as much and just the same kind of reason to think it had eyeballs as that it had feathers. Because the parts of the skeleton that indicate both were there.
Why would a smart person believe such a dumb thing or believe that it justifies fabricating the evidence?
Because the evidence isn't fabricated. That's why. Like, remember, the only thing he's done to indicate fabricated evidence is one composite fossil that National Geographic, against the advice of all scientists who were asked, published. That's it. So his evidence of scientists using fabricated evidence is evidence that no scientist ever accepted. What even is this?
When you put it that way, it sounds less good.
It does sound less good. Yeah, you're right. Alice Markle says, could you say that feathers are a sacred cow of his? Yeah, I suppose.
It's because they want it to be true so bad. In many...
No, it's just because it is. Look, I don't have an emotional attachment to the theory of evolution. In fact, there are other options that I would prefer if it were up to me. But it's not up to me. It's up to the evidence. So there you go. Lots of things about the natural world aren't the way that I would want them to be if I were in charge. If I were God. That doesn't make me reject their reality. You think I like the fact that cancer is real? No, I don't. But guess what? It doesn't matter how much I do or don't like cancer. It still recently killed Globermom and I'm not happy about it. Then what? Does that mean I'm going to pretend it doesn't exist? No, of course not. How would that help? Scientists don't believe science because it's what they want. It's because it's what the evidence shows. I'm sure plenty of people don't like evolution. It doesn't matter if you like it. It matters what the evidence is. I don't like that houses catch on fire and leave people, like some of my friends, homeless. Guess what? That doesn't change the fact that my friends had to go find a new house after the house burned down. Like, who's gonna hit play?
Audiences, people will say to me, okay, Dr. Jackson, in the talk you just gave, whatever the talk was, you just proved that there's a God and evolution's not true. So why do so many people believe in evolution?
Imagine someone coming to Charles Jackson saying, well, you just proved that there's a God and that evolution isn't true. I'm going to put that under stories that never happened. I'm taking a drink for that. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's a thing that didn't happen.
And why are there so many atheists who don't believe in God? And I'll say, you really want to know the real reason? Okay,
Uh-oh.
yeah.
Is it because they want to sin? But it's because they want to sin.
It's because I believe it's an evil spell come up out of hell. Lord of the Rings, when that big black cloud came up out of Mordor and made it dark on Middle Earth the whole time during that.
Okay, so it's literally Satan. Okay.
War. I think it's a war, and it is an evil spell from Satan, who is the father of lies and extremely good at it, at tricking people. And sometimes...
Wait. Can I roll for susceptibility?
Yeah, you have to take a wisdom save. It's DC 21. What do you got? What's your it's a 7. Yeah, no, you're definitely falling under the spell of Satan.
Dang it.
Oh well, too bad we weren't playing second edition, because then you could roll versus wands. Which was its own separate
too late
save.
For me now, Dapper. It's up to you to save us.
Oh well.
The smarter you are here, the dumber you are here, and way dumber you are here.
Aren't you the one who brags about being in Mensa, my guy? Wasn't that you who was sniffing your own farts about being in Mensa?
Yeah.
Who, in the next video we have queued up that I don't think we're going to get to today, is wearing a Mensa logo t-shirt. Maybe you're not the one to say that people who are too brain smart are heart dumb and heaven dumb. Maybe you shouldn't be saying that there, man. Because you know what that tells me about your conclusions about religion? It means I probably shouldn't trust them. If you think that the smarter that someone is, the worse they are at figuring out religious stuff, and you like to brag about being in Mensa. Does he have self-awareness at all? Any? Like, even a little bit?
He is not a self-aware wolf.
Yeah, apparently not.
I don't think creationists ever... They never seem to have self-awareness.
Yeah.
I don't think conspiracy theory people in general have self-awareness, especially because, like, when they run into conspiracy theories they don't agree with, they never stop and go, huh, I wonder if people say this about my ideas. Because then the whole
Yeah.
system would just come crashing down. We can't have that.
No, we can't.
The ancient Hebrews prayed with their hands uplifted. I would that all men lift up holy hands to heaven, said Paul. And that's not happening with my colleagues in science. Instead of putting holy hands above their head, they put their head above everything else. And there are many Christians who feel like, well, evolution...
Because they were really good at pull-ups.
Yes. The ancient Hebrews were well known as big pull-up guys.
Yeah, well, they're putting their head above everything else.
God's way. So how he did it. God did it that way. Well, then you must tear out the first 12 chapters of your Bible and throw them in the trash.
Yes, because the only way that a literature can have value is its literal truth about the real history of the Earth. I can't even imagine thinking that little of literature in general. That the only kind of literature with any value is literal, sober history. And I say that as a guy with a history degree, right? It is just such a weird concept to me, the idea that if Genesis 1 through 11 isn't literal history, that therefore it is of no value to anyone for anything. And it should just be tossed in the trash.
Isn't that why we read Lord of the Rings, for its literal history of Middle Earth?
Yes, obviously.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
One of the things that's crazy to me is that just recently, some friends of the channel were at a convention, the SBL convention, which is a society of like Bible scholars, right? And they had their professional convention over in, I think, San Diego this past weekend. Most of the people there, in fact, I would hazard to say essentially all of them, do not believe that basically there's any literal history in the entirety of the Torah. But these are people who've dedicated their entire professional lives to studying the Bible, including the Torah, or the Pentateuch, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am sure that all of these people, some of whom believe in God, some of whom don't, some of whom are Christians, some of whom are Jewish, some of whom are other things, some of whom are Protestants, some of whom are Catholic, some of whom are Orthodox, some of whom are Mormon. I doubt they have any Jehovah's Witnesses, but whatever. Yeah. Imagine telling all of those people who've dedicated their entire life to nothing but studying the Bible and learning as much as they possibly can about when it was written, who wrote it, the societies around which, or in which it was written, figuring out to whom it was written and why. Imagine telling all these people that unless all of it was literally historically true, they probably should just throw it in the trash.
That's pretty wacky.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I keep thinking back to, is like all of these people for whom the Bible is basically their entire life. And that's not how they think about Genesis. And like, just how narrow a point of view Charles Jackson has, and creationists in general have, about the value of texts. And
it also cuts against their own interpretation, right? Because some parts, even they recognize, are poetic, right? They're not meant to be taken literally, but by their own logic, I guess, they can't take those as poetic because it has to have absolute literal interpretation, right? So,
yeah,
like, well, you can't interpret it at all. Well, what you're doing is interpretation. So
yeah, it's... I don't even know. I'm going to hit play.
If evolution's true and the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, because the genealogies add up to 4004 BC, you could take a little while. You'll have troubles finding Isaac's lifespan, but the others are easy. Isaac's comes a couple chapters later after you first think you should hear it, and you can add it up yourself. And all the Muslims and the Jews and the Christians all agree.
Actually, no, the Muslims generally don't have a position as far as their theology goes, and many of them reject the literal ages found in those because Muslims are under no obligation to accept any particular thing from the Bible that is not itself repeated in the Quran. So, yeah. Now, it's true that the basic outline of creation and the stories from, the Torah or the Pentateuch are present to some degree in the Quran. There's often some minor tweaks here and there, or in some cases some major tweaks. But the basic outline is there. But Muslims by and large do not feel like they have to take those seriously, and many of them do not. In fact, even the anti-evolutionist Muslims tend to be agnostic on the age of the Earth, because reading the Quran does give you like the impression that it probably wasn't billions of years ago, because it includes like the creation of humans, but they do not tend to feel very strongly about a 6,000-year timeline.
Abraham was born in the year 2056 BC. And you can calculate backwards everybody else's age all the way back to Adam.
Actually, Abraham was born in the year never BC because he is not a historical character. He is a legendary character from a mytho-history.
He was born in the year never BC. I'm gonna take that.
Thank
put
you.
Into my lexicon.
Do it.
4004 BC, 1,948 years before Abraham was born. No way! That's such a bad call. He did that on purpose. That's no accident. You're not even close. Too long. I didn't.
Why are we doing this?
Because he likes the AIG comics, I guess. Someone has to.
No one has to, actually. It is actually always optional to read after Eden.
Know your husband was into sports? He's not. When creationists watch National Geographic TV specials. And there's that.
Imagine getting that mad about a show, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't scream at the TV when Ancient Aliens comes on.
Yeah, I don't either.
I just go, okay, changing the channel.
I don't actually, I'll be honest. Ancient Aliens is one of my guilty pleasures because it's just comedy. I find the whole thing hilarious.
Fine. Yeah.
When they're like, look at these exact right angles here at Puma Punku. And they're holding their carpenter square up to one of the blocks, and there's an obvious gap where it's not actually square. And it's like, what are you doing, guys? Or it's like, did ancient aliens actually cause the extinction of the dinosaurs so that they could create the rise of the mammals, because mammals would be the ideal, like, mind slaves? Like, no, probably not. Probably not. Were ancient hybrid monsters, like the Griffin or the Minotaur, actually ancient alien genetic experiments? Yeah, that's not really how genetics works.
They're just asking questions, Dapper. They're just trying to get at the truth by asking a series of questions they don't intend to answer.
Well, some researchers, or some theorists, believe the answer could be yes. Okay. Crypto457 says, I'm placing bets Bad Jackson thinks that the Animal Planet Mermaids documentary was a real documentary.
Or the dragon one from, was it?
I think it was
still Discovery Channel.
It might have been Discovery. Dragons, the Legend Made Real.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was, at least that one, like pretty much every time they came back from a commercial break, we're like, what if dragons were real? What would they be like? Mm-hmm. So they're constantly reminding you that this is not a real thing. This is just a bit of fun about, like, speculative biology. But the mermaids, the body found, that was just like one little disclaimer at the beginning, and then from then on, it's just straight up, played straight, fake documentary, which is why people were fooled. And it was... look, I thought it was fun, but that's because I knew it wasn't real. If I had been duped, I would have a very different opinion of Mermaid, the Body Found.
Dapper, this was our radio War of the Worlds. That's what that was.
Basically, yeah. Oh, yeah, and the Megalodon, that Discovery Channel made a while ago. Yeah, what was it like? I don't remember
I
the
didn't
title
even
of it.
see that one.
I didn't actually watch that one either, but I do know about it.
Just drew it, all the drawings of dinosaurs with feathers all over them. The prevailing theory that birds descended from theropods is paleontological wish fulfillment based on...
Oh, wait, drink for Fiducia.
What kind of science? Sloppy science, I hope.
Ah, yes. Because the guy who basically has been drummed out of any respectability in academia because he refuses to accept evidence is, of course, the guy creationists would go for.
Your faith has
They identify with him.
Well, yeah, I mean, that. To be fair, he did make that bet, now he has to lie in it when it comes to creationists liking his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, you didn't have to ignore evidence and publish obviously wrong ideas for decades. That's a you thing. I don't actually have sympathy for Alan Fiducia, really.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to things like this, I mean, obviously, I don't wish him, like, suffering or, like, ill health or anything, like, whatever.
Or the other younger bandits.
Yeah. I don't wish them, like, bad lives or, like, suffering or anything, but, like, when it comes to being embarrassed that creationists are using your stuff, well, don't keep publishing nonsense. There you go. That's the quick way to do it. Because you'll notice that creationists don't like to, like, they're not out there, like, constantly quoting, like, I don't know, Jack Horner. Right? Because Jack Horner isn't... I mean, sure, he's published things I disagree with, but he wasn't publishing absolute nonsense that was just helping creationists and doing nothing else. Whereas, that's what the bandits do. So, yeah, don't feel bad for them when they get upset that creationists like their stuff.
Against their faith. Look, their rock is not our rock.
Yeah, we have better rock bands. Christian rock bands aren't nearly as good.
Their wine is as the poison of asps.
Ooh. Well, joke's on you. I'm drinking whiskey, not wine. So, take that, Chuck.
Mean snakes. Not nice ones like your hognose snake.
Okay, well, that's it. We get a last little bit about how hognose snakes are nicer than asps. Which I
mean, okay.
Maybe? I don't know. I don't know that I personally met either of those, so... Oh, and hey, look, when I close the video, now it shows both of us. That's fun.
Yeah.
Well, so we've only got about 15 minutes left. We could start the next video, but I'm not sure there's really much points to it. It might be cleaner to just start off in 2 weeks, because we're back in 2 weeks to do another Jackson with Jackson. What do you think, Jackson?
Yay. Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay. So yeah, we're probably not gonna...
we could tell all of your viewers the Krabby Patty secret formula.
Do it.
In the next
no, just do it now.
Minutes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now I'm on the spot. I forgot.
Does it involve crab? Because that's one of the things that's always been confusing to me. Like, is Mr. Krabs serving crabs?
I think that would be very funny.
Yeah, in like a horrifying, like slasher flick kind of way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Here's what we're gonna do. While we talk about stuff that's coming up, we're gonna start a poll. All right. Is Mr. Krabs serving crab meat in his restaurant? Yes or no? Those are the only options. You can say yes, and you can say no. All right. Well, we definitely did not hit the goal. We got 0 out of 10 for the goal, so... Oh well. Why no turtle option? Because I actually want to know what people think. And turtle is just a way for people to stay on the fence, like those darn agnostics. Get off the fence! I don't actually... Honestly, the reason is because I didn't want to have to type turtle. I'm just lazy. It's the end of the show, and I feel lazy. Although yes is definitely has a commanding lead right now, with 18 votes in favor. No votes are at 20... Oh, nope. No is up to 24%. So, Yeah. So, Jackson, what do you have coming up that you want people to know about?
Well, that's kind of the thing, right? I haven't been doing anything on my channel recently. I wrote a script for a different channel recently, so here's hoping that comes out. On my own channel, the most recent thing I did was the fruit fly's tale, which was fun because we talked about embryology, not just of fruit flies, but also of humans. And so the next video will be the rotifer's tale, as in why are rotifers not having sex? What's up with that?
Is it because they're all incels?
Yes, they are too busy playing Fortnite and using gamer words
Oh,
in the lobby
yeah,
to
that's not
get
gonna.
girlfriends.
Yeah, you can't get girlfriends if you keep using too many gamer terms because girls don't play games.
Yeah,
That's what I hear.
true,
Yeah,
and facts. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so we're actually getting pretty close to the end of the series. I think there's a couple inverts left, and one of those, Dapper, is a video that you asked me to do a very long time ago.
Ooh,
Uh, and now you're gonna get that video.
can I learn
You
what it
asked me,
is? Because I don't
yes,
remember.
you asked me to do a video on parasitic barnacles a very long time
Ooh,
ago.
yes, I did. I do remember having done that.
This was like 4 years ago,
On
something
something
like
like
that.
that. Yeah.
Um, and so the barnacle's tale is on the docket. So that one's there's so the rotifer, I think the barnacle tail, and then or I might be getting the order backwards. Then the velvet worm's tail. Those are the last of the protostomes. The velvet worm's tail will be about molecular clocks.
Okay.
Um, and then we'll jump from there on down to Nidarians and so on, so on. So we're actually getting pretty close to the end of this series. And once this series ends, I will start on a climate change series. So I want to read another book, but I want to read a book antagonistically, not just as like
Hmm.
not just showing like, okay, here's what this book says, and you know, talking about more recent advancements, stuff like that. So I have a book on climate change um, that was written by a guy who works for the oil industry, and I'm sure he has some very scientific and completely thoroughly accurate things to say about climate change. It's not as though there is a long history of people working for the oil industry and lying about climate change. That's fortunately not a thing.
Yes,
Very
obviously not.
fortunately.
No one would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so that'll be the next series. I'm excited for that one. So that I hope won't take 4 years to make like this series.
Well,
But
you know.
RJ and I are also working on the Rocks for their Volume 2 currently. Um,
Okay.
we've really kind of stepped up production on that, so we're going through it. I'm working on chapter. See, we've finished chapters 1. Is it 1, 2, and 3? 1 and 2, something like that. Hold on a second. Now I'm curious. Wait, Rocks for there, chapter 1, 2. Okay, sorry. We finished chapters 1 and 2. Um, I'm working on chapter 4 right now. RJ's working on chapter 3. Okay, yeah. So we're making good progress. So next year the book should be ready. I'm excited for it. Because the first one was just kind of a broad series of sweeping attacks on creationism, and this one will be more specifically focused on kind of on the flood. So it's pretty
Blood from
largely
Halo?
for maybe I don't know about that one.
Okay. Wait,
The
wait,
global flood,
wait,
as in the
Jackson.
Milwaukeean deluge.
Have you not played the original Halo games?
No.
All right. Well, first we're going to read a super chat. Vince
Okay.
O'Connor for 1999 says, "Have a yuck-free Turkey Day." That is the plan, Vince O'Connor. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. All right, Jackson, we got to get you to
Yes.
play the original Halo trilogy.
I played one for like 30 minutes at a friend's house. It was It's so okay. So like you are, um, you're part of the team. You're sent to investigate because there's like some planet that got like attacked, and like no one's reached out for a while. So you're sent to go check it out, and pretty much as soon as you arrive, it's like the alien group that they were afraid it would be.
That is not really the plot to any of the first 3 Halo games.
Okay, do you know which one I'm talking about?
I think that might be a Halo Wars title, maybe?
Okay, maybe.
Was the
like,
game
yeah,
you played
so
a
you go and-
first-person shooter, or was it a real-time strategy?
Yeah, it was first-person shooter.
Oh. I mean, maybe you're thinking of ODST? Or maybe Reach?
I don't know, man.
Look, we'll get you to play like Halo Combat Evolved. Don't worry about
Okay.
it. It'll be fine. We'll figure out how to make this happen. So now that we know that Jackson basically has no context in classic video games of the 2000s.
Hey, I played a few.
It's okay, Jackson. You don't have to
games.
lie to us. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I
Jackson, don't worry
You know
about
what
it.
game I played?
It's not a moral
I
failing.
played what Final Fantasy 9? I have Final Fantasy 9.
Yeah. I definitely believe you.
Oh my goodness.
What? I said I definitely believe you.
I don't I think you're being facetious when you say that.
Look, I would never be facetious about anything.
I also don't. I think you're being facetious.
I don't
when you
have
say
a
that.
facetious bone in my body. You can tell because I can name all of them, and none of them are named facetious.
That's all right. I can't argue with that one.
Yeah, see? Alright, let's see what's coming up here on this channel. So, or just from me in general. So on Thursday, Andrew Snelling is Still a Liar, the movie, will be happening at 11 a.m. Pacific, which is 2 p.m. Eastern. Yes, I do know that is in fact Turkey Day here in the US, but hey, there's a premiere. You can watch it if you want to on the premiere day. If you don't want to, you can always watch it later, because, it'll be here. So just because it's a holiday, doesn't mean that we don't have the regularly scheduled programs here on the Dapper Dinosaur channel. We will also, on Friday, the next day, over on Top Hats Off, we will be doing Star Trek Adventures with Star Trek Lexington. We will be featuring... That show features a number of YouTubers that you're probably familiar with, including Chesh, Jordan from Reason of Doubt, and Craig from FTFE. Craig won't be here, but Chesh and Jordan should be, as well as some of my audience members, such as Zerolon and Tirirana and Necro. So come hang out with us for that. That will be over on Top Hats Off at 5 p.m. Eastern, which is, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Over on Top Hats Off, that is the episode that you saw the coming attraction for in the intermission today. Then on Saturday, I'm going to be continuing on with my Tyson versus Ross series, where Neil deGrasse Tyson and Hugh Ross are disagreeing about what you can glean from just a copy of the Bible without any background scientific knowledge. And in the first episode, Hugh Ross, while arguing against Neil deGrasse Tyson, kept demonstrating that Neil deGrasse Tyson was in fact right. So that was weird, but we're going to continue with that. I'm not sure if Kip Davis will be there. I don't think so, but I am going to be inviting Vishanti, and I believe she will be able to make it. So if you enjoyed that, then come hang out for that. Then on next Tuesday, we will be back to Kent with Bent, but on the 10th, which will be the second Tuesday, we're going to be doing Jackson with Jackson again, because the 24th would normally be when we do Jackson with Jackson, but Jackson... I'm not going to ask Jackson to be here for Christmas Eve. I will, however, be we're switching out the normal date of Kent with Bent for we're switching out a Kent with Bent day with a Jackson with Jackson day. So we still get Jackson with Jackson that month, and just as many Kents with Bents as we normally would have, but we swapped those 2 days. So with that, I want to say thank you so much to everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. If you're in America, or you're outside of America, but you're, say, an American expat or something, celebrating Thanksgiving, I hope you have a wonderful holiday. Enjoy all that dinosaur meat if you're eating dinosaur meat. If you're not, then enjoy whatever it is you are having. And if you're not celebrating on that day, then I just hope you have a wonderful Thursday. All right. Goodbye, everybody. We will be over on my Discord watching Power Rangers Samurai. We're going to watch 5 episodes. So come hang out if you want to watch Power Rangers Samurai. Bye.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Benthoven, Thurevara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Elron Teller, Ian Chen, Calvin Brostig von Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Sphincter of Doom, Wallace, Edwin M., North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, and Strawberry Vein. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.